Maureen O'Hara never had any interest in becoming an actress until a fortune teller lured her into the industry by telling her that's where she'd find success. Although she eventually became a successful actress, that success led her down a path that would make her life miserable to the point that she was accused of killing her own child. Did she really kill her own child? Let's explore her untold stories while showing you some of her rare photos. When Maureen was 5, her family invited a gypsy who predicted that Maureen would become very rich and famous. It was easy for young Maureen to figure out that such a luxurious lifestyle does not always come to a woman on a soccer field, so she decided that she must become an actress. Not just any actress, but the most famous actress in the whole world. O'Hara started learning how to talk, walk, and act like a woman. She enrolled in a drama school in Dublin, where she studied drama, music, and dance. By the time she was 10, Maureen was already working in the theater company, and that was where she got one of her earliest appearances as Robin Hood in a Christmas pantomime. Becoming a stage actress had always been her dream, but you see, at that time, the screens were more popular and so promised a higher chance of an early breakthrough. When O'Hara finally got her first screen audition, she flopped it. The judges refused her, but British-American actor Charles Laughton saw potential, and this is probably the reason why we still remember her today. He promised to help her only if she would change her name from Maureen Fitzsimmons to Maureen O'Hara. She agreed, and so Charles invited her to feature alongside him in Alfred Hitchcock's Jamaica Inn in 1938. While the film was heavily criticized, Maureen got the publicity she prayed for, and it was success after success until she was nicknamed the Queen of Technicolor. Some of Maureen O'Hara's notable features include How Green Was My Valley, Sinbad the Sailor, The Spanish Man, and Miracle on the 34th Street. One thing that Maureen did differently from other actresses of her time was that she performed her own stunts. She hated body doubles, and this almost killed her during her early years as an actress. During the filming of Hunchback of Notre Dame, there was a scene where O'Hara's character was to stand at the gallows. Without any safety net, Maureen tied a noose around her neck as she went through the sequence. This was brave, dangerous, and almost foolish. Fortunately, she survived without any scratch, but the men she would let into her life would make sure that she wasn't that lucky again. Maureen was invited by famed Western director John Ford to feature in his next film, How Green Was the Valley, and this was how her troubles started. Director John fell in love with her, and he had a funny way of expressing it. Sometimes he wrote long love letters. Other times, he threw his fist at Maureen's face. O'Hara and John worked on 5 more films together in 2 decades, and in all these years, he still did not stop sending those love letters. Not sure if Maureen hated this, but it confused her, as the next day Ford would be incredibly cruel to her, punching her and beating her up if she got a scene wrong. Maureen endured this toxic relationship because of how productive their collaborations were, and John, as possessive as he was, would still let her play around with a few men she truly loved. They never truly stated the real nature of their relationship, but O'Hara, in a 2004 interview, revealed that Ford loved her so much, he just didn't know how to express his feelings. Also, in one of her memoirs, O'Hara revealed that John Ford might be bisexual. According to her, one time in 1955, she walked into John's office and found him in a steamy makeout session with a man she later identified as one of Hollywood's leading men. John Ford lived a life of mystery, but unfortunately, men like this and the worst of them were the only type that Maureen attracted. And the actress would suffer so much in the hands of the men she gave her heart to. You might not know this, but Maureen's mother was one of the most beautiful women of her time. As a matter of fact, she was so charming that whenever she left the house, men would line up in the streets to catch a glimpse of her. This was one of the many things O'Hara inherited from her mother, and in Hollywood, this was both a blessing and a curse. Maureen, as a young actress, was easily the brightest star in any room, and this attracted both the good and the bad. When film executives couldn't find their way with her, they got creative and made her life miserable. On one such occasion, Maureen lost control and gave one of those directors a very painful memory that would live with him forever. During the filming of Bill of Divorcement, director John Farrow stalked and harassed Maureen even when she made it clear that she would never be interested in him. He kept on pushing, and with each turn down, his heart grew more cold towards the young actress. The director at that time was married to actress Maureen O'Sullivan, so O'Hara didn't understand why he bugged her that much. Farrow continued to bully, always looking for ways to make her on-set experience even more miserable, and he was soon met with a very unpleasant shock. One day, Maureen just couldn't take it anymore. She threw her fist at the director's jaw and left a very painful experience. Farrow got the message and never disturbed her after that day, but sadly, this was not going to be the end of it with Hollywood executives. Maureen claimed that she was a virgin until she got married, but in early 1942, she was accused of going through a painful abortion. This rumor was started by another producer who hated her, Daryl Zanuck. O'Hara had a contract with Zanuck's team to star in a movie with Tyrone Power, but just as they were about to start production, she fell sick. Her medical reports revealed that she had appendicitis and painful ovarian cysts. After surgery, her doctors advised that she cut down the workload for the meantime, and when she did that, her studio producers were going to revolt. I mean, you can't blame a woman for prioritizing her health, but Zanuck was still going to hold a grudge. He was convinced that O'Hara just wanted time off, and so he went on to recast another actress for that role. Zanuck went even further to spread dirty rumors about Maureen's health problems, tagging them as leftovers from an abortion. This shattered Maureen's heart, but there was still very little she could do as she was still new to the industry. Years later, when something similar happened, Maureen made sure that her accusers compensated her with $5 million. O'Hara's dating history has just 3 kinds of men: the men she loved, the men who abused her, and the men who loved her. Her first marriage in the industry was almost a joke. She never believed it could happen until it did. O'Hara met English producer George Brown on the set of Jamaica Inn, and like most men, he couldn't resist the young actress's charm. He kept pushing her until she agreed to a relationship with him. But Brown wanted more than that. He wanted to keep her forever. When Maureen wanted to return to Hollywood for her next movie, George would pull a disturbing stunt that made Maureen his wife in one day. Just a day before O'Hara left for America, she received dozens of calls from Brown asking that she come to see him for the last time. After much persuasion, she agreed, and she regretted this for the rest of her life. On getting to their agreed location, the actress was shocked to see that she was actually walking into her own wedding, which Brown had secretly planned. To save his face, she said yes, and that was how she was deceived into her first marriage. Her Hollywood bosses were furious when they found out about her secret marriage, and Brown frustrated them even more when he refused to keep quiet about the wedding. He accepted interviews where he would brag that he was hitched to Ireland's most famous starlet. Maureen hated herself for this, and for payback, she would refuse to return back to Brown, who lived in Ireland. She stayed in the US until her marriage was annulled, so the wedding day was the last time Brown ever saw Maureen. Her next marriage was to American film director William Houston Price. According to Maureen, this was the man she lost her virginity to, and it took living with him to realize that she had made a terrible mistake. Like Brown, Price played his cards right, and he had O'Hara walking down the aisle with him. A few months into their marriage, Maureen found out that her new husband was a terrible alcoholic. She hated this but couldn't divorce him because she felt guilty due to her Catholic beliefs. According to the popular stories, Maureen would start keeping public affairs just so she could make Price divorce her. This continued for a while until the director saw that his wife had lost interest in him, and so in July 1951, he filed for a divorce on the grounds of incompatibility. O'Hara and Williams share one child, a daughter, Bronwyn Bridget Price, who was born in 1944. The next man on Maureen's love list was wealthy Mexican politician Enrique Parra. They met in a restaurant during one of her visits to Mexico, and according to O'Hara, Enrique did not only save her from an abusive marriage, but he also brought back warm light to her life again. Unfortunately, all the toxic men she had dated were going to fight her newfound happiness. John Ford hated the Mexican, and so did Maureen's ex-husband. Together, they did all they could to frustrate their relationship, and in the end, the couple were forced to separate. Maureen made a decision afterward to never open up her heart to any man until her deathbed, but she failed to keep her vows. For the heartache she suffered this time, she blamed her brother. Sometime in the late 60s, Maureen was hooked up with senior pilot Charles F. Blair by her brother, and they liked each other immediately. Charles wanted to move quickly, so he surprised the actress with a ring proposal a few months into their relationship. O'Hara had a history of not saying no to marriage proposals, and this was no exception. Maureen would even quit her career to be more available for her new husband. She enjoyed her life outside the spotlight, but tragedy was going to drag her to the headlines again. In 1978, Charles died in a plane crash, and the news devastated Maureen. She had finally found the one for her, and death stole her joy. After her husband's death, Maureen was forced to step up as the CEO and president of their airline company. This made her the first woman president of a scheduled U.S. airline. Aside that, Maureen was no stranger to the court during her time in Hollywood. She was either settling disputes with directors or fighting men that she used to love. The first time O'Hara was dragged to court was at the peak of her romance with Para. Her ex-husband Price filed a case against her, accusing her of immorality, and also demanded custody of their daughter, but Maureen would make him regret this. She countersued, charging him with refusal to follow court orders to pay $50 for child support. It would have been interesting to know how this ended, but unfortunately, they both agreed to shield it from the public. The second time Maureen was in a courtroom was when she was accused of engaging in sexual relations with her former boyfriend, Enrique Parra. A devoted Catholic all her life, O'Hara was not only angry about all of this, but she was disgusted as well. She filed a $5 million lawsuit against Confidential magazine for publicizing a lie. In her autobiography, she revealed that she was the first actress to win a case against an industry tabloid. In 1978, Maureen was diagnosed with uterine cancer, and surgery was her only chance of survival. It happened that at the same time, John Wayne was also dying of the same disease. Maureen was heartbroken that she was the only one given a chance to survive. Wayne might not have always been the gentleman to her, but he was very instrumental in her career success. According to her, John Wayne was not just any actor, he was the United States of America. Wayne died in June 1979, and O'Hara fell into depression. It took long hours of therapy for her to be able to resume public appearances. After John's death, Maureen was going to suffer from 6 successive heart attacks, and after that she had a stroke in 2005. In her last years, she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and short-term memory loss. Maureen O'Hara died in her sleep on the 24th of October 2015 in her home in Boise, Idaho. She was 95 years old, and her remains were buried next to her late husband, Charles Blair. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other videos of beautiful actresses from the yesteryears on the end screen. As always, thanks for watching.